Well, good evening. Welcome to Talk of the Town. And we haven't done one of these for a while. Hope to do some more in the future, kind of like Wyman, a special edition of Life magazine that comes out on the newsstand every once in a while. We'll do another one sometime in the not-too-distant future. But it is Talk of the Town, which has a very long history at A&M Commerce and on our Commerce cable system and now on YouTube. And our guest, I will not have to introduce to many of you, but I will anyway, and he is Wyman Williams, who is the Director of Development for the College of Business and Entrepreneurship at A&M Commerce. Wyman, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on for this return of a fine show.
Well, you're very welcome. Wyman, I think to everyone who spent any time in commerce at all over the last 40 years or so, is very well known for his career in the car business. Of course, he was the Chief Executive Officer of Williams Chevrolet and Williams Motors across the highway from the university for a long time. And a few years ago, he embarked on a new career. So tell us then what you're doing on a day-to-day basis now.
Well, what I do is I work with the Dean of the College of Business and Entrepreneurship, and the idea is to engage former students with current students and eventually ask those former students to support current students.
Right, and you're going out a lot and you're talking to alumni and other people who have an interest in the university.
Well, I have a new duty related to our 125th year as an institution of higher education, and that is to get before any group who will allow me and give them a brief program about our history and to try to clarify some questions that people have had for 18 years. Believe it or not, it's been 18 years since we joined the A&M system. There are some of our former students prior to that just don't understand who we are related to their experience here. So that's what I'm here to talk about.
To refresh everyone's memory, or maybe to fill you in on a little bit of history, this institution was known under various names for a long, long time, most of its history. We're going to cover this here in a few minutes. But most recently, before the current name of Texas A&M University Commerce, it was known as East Texas State University.
Correct.
And before that, East Texas State College, and there were other names involving the old initials of ET. So that is still somewhat confusing, somewhat disconcerting to alumni who go back before the 1996
It is, and I have been calling on former students for 4 years now, and I assure you there is confusion out there about what we are. An example of that I'd like to read to you. This is a response we got from a former student who got his first degree here in 1957. He got 2 more degrees in the 60s. His wife got 2 degrees from us in the 60s. And when he received an emailed departmental newsletter from us, here's how he responded. Let me read this to you. Please remove my name and email. It is not A&M at Commerce. It is East Texas State University. If we wanted to attend A&M, we would have done so. We opted for the better schooling, East Texas State University. It will always be East Texas State University, even though stolen from real students. Now, John Mark, as a fundraiser, that is rather concerning. To have a person who had a great experience here not understand who we are today. So that really triggered what I'm about to tell you about.
Yeah, and so Wyman is going out and visiting with alumni and others, but to a great extent alumni, and he has a message to bring to the alumni of A&M Commerce and East Texas State. So there's a presentation that you have, and it's a terrific presentation. I've seen parts of this, and we've talked privately and otherwise. So let's just begin with your presentation.
Well, let me introduce people to a book that was presented at our 100th anniversary. This was written by Donald E. Reynolds, and it's called Professor Mayo's College. So it is something that is available, and I would encourage everyone to read it. However, the last 25 years, we've seen significant change, and that's what I'm going to be addressing, the history of what brought us to that change, and I'm going to be addressing 3 important questions. And if we can get those up on the screen, the first one is, how did East Texas State become A&M Commerce? The second one is, what is the relationship of A&M Commerce with the flagship Texas A&M University? And third, how do A&M Commerce students benefit by being a part of the A&M system? So first one is, how did East Texas State become A&M Commerce? Well, this started in Cooper, Texas in 1889. Professor Mayo had 35 students, And for 5 years, his school did quite well in Cooper, Texas, until there was a tragic fire, destroyed his building. A group of entrepreneurs in commerce put together an incentive package to get Professor Mayo to rebuild his college in commerce, and that's why it's here today. Now, his college in commerce progressed until nearing the end of his career. He realized that there were 30 similar schools east of Dallas. These are teacher prep schools, and it was called East Texas Normal College. He knew if it was going to last beyond his life, it was going to have to align with a larger entity. So he began talking with the state of Texas about purchasing the school. And actually, on the day he died, word got to Commerce that the state was buying East Texas Normal, and it became East Texas State Normal. That was 1917. The school progressed through the Roaring '20s. It survived the Great Depression. It moved on into World War II, where it educated mostly women because the men were gone. After World War II, the government incentivized veterans going to school. So the enrollment started growing as men came back and started to school. And then the Korean conflict created more veterans that were eligible for the GI Bill. So by the early 60s, there were about 4,000 students here on campus. Now, next I want to show you a timeline that shows fall enrollments for 40 years, from 1963 until 2003. If you can get that up, it will help me explain what I call a boom time, and that was really from 1963 until 1975. And it was truly a boom time around here because everything seemed to be going on the up and up for years to come. Estimates were that by 1980, Commerce would be a town of in excess of 20,000 people, and our student population would be over 25,000. So, needless to say, that didn't come true, and there's some good reasons. Here's the timeline. Now, a couple of things happened in 1964 that are significant for college enrollment throughout the country. That was the first year that baby boomers became of age to go to college. Also, locally, it was the time that desegregation was begun here at East Texas State. So, and there were lots of things going on in the 60s, a lot of turmoil. There were war protests, there were assassinations, there was huge turmoil. However, there was also the Cold War that led to a space race, and the space race led to increased enrollment in higher education, especially here because math and science became exceptionally important. So that added to our boom times. Now you'll notice that the yellow portion of this chart is undergraduate enrollment. The blue portion is graduate enrollment. The names across the bottom are the names of the presidents, and the vertical lines are the limits of their terms. Now, in 1975, you notice we had a peak of enrollment, and that was just short of 10,000 students. What happened, the official ending of the Vietnam War was in 1975, and those of us who had gotten seriously academically inclined to delay a draft letter no longer had that pressure. So we began to see a decline.
Let's take a break right there. It's a good place to break. So we will take a short pause here in Talk of the Town. We're visiting with Wyman Williams, the Director of Development for the College of Business and Entrepreneurship, and we'll be right back, and we'll continue this presentation that Wyman is now doing to A&M Commerce alumni as we get ready to observe the 125th anniversary of Texas A&M Commerce this fall. We'll be right back.